Welcome to Eco-Friendly Homes, your go-to podcast for learning all things healthy, efficient, and eco-friendly in your home. I'm your host, Madison Hopkins, and I'm so thankful that you're here with me today. I'm a certified green real estate agent in Denver, Colorado, helping you live more sustainably by sharing tangible steps each month on how to reduce your home's emissions, save money, buy cleaner, build greener, and to discuss what an eco-friendly home could and does look like. If you're ready to work with me as your Denver-based real estate agent, email me, madison@movingwithmadison.com. And remember to hit subscribe so you can get notified every second and fourth Wednesday of the month when I release an episode on how to live more eco-friendly in your home. Now sit back, relax, grab your favorite tea, have one of your favorite cookies, and enjoy the show. This podcast episode is sponsored by Millennium Mortgage, your lending solutions for the place you call home. Hey, podcast listeners, and welcome back to Eco-Friendly Homes. Today, our guest is Matt Sandy, and he is the founder of a really cool sustainability-focused, green-focused digital newsletter called Seedlings. And so it's obviously very appropriate of a name because seeds have to do with regenerative. There's a big movement for regenerative agriculture. So I think that's a very appropriate name. It's also I like it because it sounds like it's planting a tiny seed in the minds of the news readers. And so I found out about Seedlings through Instagram, and now I am subscribed to the newsletter, and it's really an amazing newsletter. So before I dive into that, I want to introduce Matt. Matt, thank you so much for being here on the show today.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah. And so why did you start Seedlings? What are your goals with Seedlings? And was I sort of right in thinking that the name kind of comes from like a regenerative standpoint and wanting to sort of plant good things in people's minds and watch those good things blossom?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, thanks again for having me, and hello everyone. Yeah. It's great to be able to tell everyone a little bit about Seedlings and what we're doing. So I, historically, I'm a journalist, and I spent a long time out in South America writing for people like Time and the New York Times, mainly about subjects like the Amazon rainforest and other sort of environmental social issues. And that really was what led me and led us to doing Seedlings, in as much as we would always do these, really interesting, but sometimes also distressing stories about what was going on. And we'd always have friends and friends of friends reaching out to us on social media and other places saying, well, yeah, but what can we do? It's great to hear what's happening, and it's important to hear what's happening, but it can really, sometimes this sort of coverage can really lead to a sense of not feeling empowered, of feeling helpless and not knowing what to do. And this really was the kernel for why we created Seedlings. We wanted to create a space where not only people could, find out what was going on and feel inspired, but also give them something to do. And so, as you say, this is very much in the name itself, right? We felt that there's so much potential right now. The world in 2-3 decades is going to look so different than the world as it is now. And we really believe that's going to be positive in so many ways. And so fundamentally what Seedlings is about, creating that positive vision of the future, which sometimes, we don't think exists in the news media as much as it could. And also projecting it and giving people, now we're obviously a very small company, a very small brand at this point, but, giving people a way to be part of it. And I think that's fundamentally what Seedlings is about.
Well, you said something I kind of want to tap into for a second, and that's the vision of the world in the next couple decades, and how y'all at Seedlings definitely see that as a positive future. There's definitely so many times when I'm like, oh, wow, yes, Mad Max is coming for us. And like with the launch of Meta, I started listening to Ready Player One because so many people are referencing Ready Player One. So it's like, okay, well, I need to know what is this? But I was told do not watch the movie. So I'm listening to the audiobook. And it's not really a good picture that a lot of these things paint. And I think oftentimes we can see like why that picture is so vivid. But I also believe in like the beautiful picture of the next couple decades. And I think it's really important that we share that message and talk about it with other people and talk about it to people who don't agree with that, or like even in, sometimes I know we all see like the doom and gloom, but I think it's strong to stay in that positive vision. So yeah. And I think your newsletter and my podcast are kind of similar in that sense, that is that we're both trying to share the message and educate people and teach them what's out there and expose them to new things that, weren't in our field of vision before.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think from our perspective, like, it's not certainly the world is a very complicated place, and the world is, at its most interesting when it's complicated, and we aren't, ever going to sort of, try and sort of mislead people about anything. But I think what you've touched on something that's really important there, and that is fundamentally a positive vision is something a lot of people can be excited by, and a lot of people can get behind. And I think fundamentally it's got the basis for really involving a lot more people and exciting a lot more people. And at the end of the day, nothing is fixed, right? We can debate what the world's going to be like in 2 or 3 decades, and you can say one thing, I can say another, someone else will say something else. But the future is something that we, at best, that we create together, right? And I think, the worst thing is to have, people feeling down or depressed or thinking that there's something, necessarily going to be worse about the future in the past, because there really isn't. And it's really something about what we can create together.
So within your newsletter, Seedlings, I mean, y'all go through all of that, and like y'all expose so many things that are happening, from like companies to politics to money, so many different things, to different community leaders. I actually found one person I was like, that's really cool. And I reached out to her, the eco rapper. She just she just looks hilarious, and I can't wait to connect with her. Crafting, I mean, so many different things. So what is y'all's process? Like, how do you go about finding so many different people to spotlight every week? Because it's not like y'all just mention like a couple different things and like just kind of graze over it. Like, your writers definitely know, and I don't know if you're a writer for your own newsletter, but you definitely know what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, so I'm definitely a writer, and Seedlings is definitely my baby. And one of the luckily we have several great people who are really amazing in terms of finding stories and writing stories now. And for me, it's very much been a case of sort of stepping backwards and letting them do their thing. There's all sorts of email newsletters out there, that tell you what's going on in the world, or connect to interesting people. And we really felt there should be something that was very focused on those who have or want to develop more of a sort of green tinge sort of view of the world. So I guess fundamentally what we're looking to do is find the most interesting stories and the most interesting people and the most interesting recommendations, and put them all in one place. And unfortunately, there's no magic wand. There's no magic wand to do that. It just involves looking through like a lot of interesting stuff and a lot of interesting things, and finding out what we think has a particular resonance for us and for our audience. I think we sort of define sustainability very broadly. We say it's not only about our relationship with the natural world, it's also about our relationship to each other, and it's also about our relationship to ourselves. That's fundamentally what living sustainably in the widest sense is about. And I'm really glad you find those stories and those people interesting, because it just takes a lot of sifting to produce that.
Yeah, I mean, I know, like, for me, sort of finding podcast guests is not really something that I put like my mind's focus on. I don't focus on it too much. It just I kind of just let it come. Like, if I find something really interesting, if someone refers me to something, if I reach out, and that's worked out really far. But y'all have so many that you do a week. And I can't even imagine what all you find and go through, and all the people that you connect with. But I did reply to one of your Seedling newsletters, and Juliana got back with me and invited me into the Slack group. And before we hit record, you mentioned that participation and community is a really big pillar for y'all right now. So tell us a little bit about your Slack group, if you will, and kind of what goes on there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I think from our perspective, when we create Seedlings, we never just wanted to create a newsletter, interesting and useful as that might be, because fundamentally, I think if you're looking to create a brand in the space and you're looking to sort of solve, work out how to solve problems for people, it's a lot about what we can do ourselves individually, all of us, and it's a lot about who we can become together. It's not just about what we create, what Seedlings creates. And so yeah, we've got the community on Slack, and it's really sort of it's us sort of, you know, firstly it's us sort of building Seedlings and everything around that, and all, you know, our community members from all around the world really contributing. One of the most exciting things we got at the moment is we have our first few sort of Seedlings chapters at a few different college campuses in the US, where we have teams of Seedlings basically who are doing, you know, more or less, you know, similar things to what we initially did when we launched last year. So obviously creating content by email and on Instagram, and also running green careers events, green challenges, you know, between fraternities, sororities, etc. All these sort of, you know, fun ideas, but rather than it just being us, it's a matter of there being, you know, lots of different chapters. At the moment, on a few college campuses, we hope to go there. We're thinking about high schools, workplaces, I don't know. But fundamentally creating these real sort of in real life sort of communities that share Seedlings values and are connected by our wider network.
That's very cool. Yeah, I like that a lot. So it sounds kind of like it helps you find new things that you wouldn't have found before.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully. I mean, I think at the end of the day, you know, I think at the end of the day, like we, you know, where do we, you know, why are we all here? Where do we want to go? And it's about actually doing things and becoming who we want to become, right? So, I mean, our vision for Seedlings in the end is that, you know, maybe you first encounter your Seedlings chapter in high school and start creating content there, become more aware of all these different issues, and then maybe a connection to the Seedlings network helps you in terms of, you know, getting into college, and then you go to college and you get involved more, and maybe Seedlings helps you get a job in the green sector, whatever it is. These sort of these things, you know, obviously content's important as well, but like the idea of really being able to enable people to, you know, really make progress in their lives and also make the world a greener place is really something enchanting to us.
I like that. That's very cool. And so how long ago did you all start doing the community campuses within Seedlings? Or was that like part of your initial launch? Was that always in the plan?
So right after, so we launched about a year ago initially, and our first, so very early we started out with a campus ambassador program. And so from even though it was major sort of lockdown sort of this time last year, we had sort of campus ambassadors at various universities. UC Berkeley was where we started first, but various other places as well. And at that point, it wasn't quite the same as it is now. It's more like, you know, let's spread awareness of Seedlings, basically, with nothing more ambitious than that. But we noticed right away that there was a lot of enthusiasm for Seedlings. A lot of, I think, even though we sort of very new and just launched, I think the most gratifying thing was people could see what we were aiming for, if you see what I mean, and see the potential in terms of what we were creating. And I think that led us to think, well, actually, yeah, and we obviously experimented with, you know, many things in the past year, but that led us to think there's something more interesting there and something much more sort of community focused.
Nice. And then, so you said you launched that a year ago. So how long had you been thinking about this before you kind of decided to switch? And how did you kind of switch into your own Seedlings company, your own newsletter, your own journal?
Okay, so we had a previous company which was focused, as I say, a lot on sort of content out of South America. So, for example, we'd work with Time in the New York Times on sort of content about the Amazon, or we'd work with tech companies on use cases in South America, or we'd work with NGOs on investigations, those sort of things. And basically,
and I'm sorry, real quick, Matt, you're saying we, so like, is this you and like someone else that you work pretty closely with?
Yeah, so we always had a small team, and that team was initially focused on the old business. So Juliana, for example, who's our community lead now, who you just mentioned, played a key role in the old company as well. Some people have come across, some people haven't. At this point, we have a few people sort of dotted around the world. And so, yes, basically in the nutshell, all the work we did, or nearly all the work we did in the old company, was based on field work. It was based on going out and talking to people and researching things, sometimes in their remote places. And so, as you can imagine, when March 2020 came around and the world went into lockdown, that gave us a pause in terms of the work. And that was when we started thinking. We'd done a lot of the reporting on the Amazon in 2019. But once 2020 came around, we started to think, well, actually, let's have a real sort of brainstorm, blue sky thinking on what we want to achieve and how we want to achieve it. Do we want to continue working with other sort of big companies to distribute our work, or do we want to try and create a brand of our own and have this really sort of powerful direct connection with audience, with community, and sort of do something where we sort of try to be more sort of innovative. So yeah, to answer your question, it was during 2020 that we first came up with the idea, but it was sort of in terms of actually launching it and sort of committing to spending a lot more time and working out what it will evolve and how to grow. It's been about a year.
That's very cool. So you mentioned that at the beginning that you had been writing for companies sort of in that field work area, but I didn't realize that was with the same people who you are working with now. That's really cool that y'all have that sort of really solid foundation with each other.
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, I think we were always very lucky. So we were obviously based in Brazil, and we had some really great people working with us, and obviously we've expanded and changed since then. But obviously, yeah, it was the team that came up, like fundamentally it was never just me who came up with the idea for Seedlings. It was several of us, and so it's fantastic to be able to sort of to continue doing it together.
Nice. And so what is one of your favorite parts about Seedlings? These are my two very similar questions. Is your favorite part about Seedlings, and what do you think the community's favorite part is? Or maybe like the most beneficial thing to the community. And that could be what you kind of already talked about. Is it like helping people kind of reach new heights and go into different spaces that they wouldn't have thought about before? But yeah, I'll leave it there.
Yeah, that's a good question. So my favorite part about Seedlings, or at least as a Seedlings reader, I guess it's different, obviously when you're involved in it, but like my favorite part is when you just come across a story which is almost, I guess this is the news journalist in me, right? When you come across a story that's almost sort of unbelievable about how, I don't know, how, there's going to be a 20-story building made out of bamboo, and this is totally possible and safe and incredible. Something that you really sort of are amazed is true. And I think that is sort of, I guess, the story element of Seedlings for me. I kind of think like, I can't obviously speak for the whole community, and I think people like different things about it. I think more often than not, it's a lot, people sort of value Seedlings as very much about being, a safe space. And as I say, that's not, necessarily always assaulting people with sort of relentless, unjustified positivity, although we are obviously very positive minded. But it's a lot about, I think if you go into social media, if you go into the traditional news media, if you go into other spaces, there's a lot of sort of sources, I guess, sort of trying to assault you one way or another. If that's not too aggressive language, it's like there's a lot of incentivization of the creation of anxiety, right? And so
it does kind of feel like an assault sometimes. Yeah, it's very abrupt. I've started to think about things as like Pandora's box, because you never really know when you open like a social media app or when you open a website or anything with the ads on the website. Everything's kind of like a Pandora's box. You never really know what's waiting for you, and that can be very jarring. And a lot of the times it's not helpful or healthy things either. So yeah.
And I think there is fundamentally the incentivization of something that gets someone's attention by any means. If you've got a social media feed that people are scrolling past hundreds of things, then there's anyone or any organization thinks, well, we need to get someone's attention, and so there needs to be a strong emotion there. And it's not to say that's always sort of anger or always anxiety. It can be positive emotions as well. But there's amongst many of the sources of things being created, including traditional, reputable news media, it's like we need to get people's attention. And I think I guess we're sort of lucky-ish in terms of Seedlings, because we're looking to build something sort of deeper. As I say, it's a lot about sort of person-to-person, genuine sort of community interaction. But it's also the fact that even just being a newsletter, okay, it's still looking for your attention alongside, to open it alongside many other things you can pay attention to, right? But also it's a bit more serene. If we know people like it, we know people get into the habit of opening it, and probably will anyway. We don't have to sort of fight for their attention, fight for their emotion. And so hopefully I think that creates, through its sort of nature and through its tone, that this is going to be somewhere that you can trust, with people that you can trust, and people and things that you like, without necessarily feeling that you have to sort of walk the gauntlet of of some other sort of spaces on the internet.
Yeah, building trust with your people. Yeah. Well, that's really cool. So what has been one of your most favorite stories that you've come across, or companies or people? Because I really wanted to ask you that, since you mentioned like some things that really just kind of blow your mind is what you like about it the most.
I'm trying to think what my absolute favorite seedlings story. For some reason, I've got in my head the one about blimps, about using blimps, about how a company developing blimps as a as a form of passenger travel, which may not be like, fundamentally like replacing air travel in totality anytime soon. But it's these sort of really sort of curious, wacky stories that really sort of bring it home for me.
So someone was trying to use a blimp to replace airplanes. Is that?
Yeah, yeah. This is actually happening. I think it's in the UK, and it's only for sort of short distances, and
Sure.
it's not going to get you there in like supersonic speeds. But yeah, it's just sort of these sort of like. Because the thing is, once you delve into like all the different sort of things that are going on, all the different sort of startups, all the different creators, all the different innovation that's going on, it's really quite incredible what's out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I am thankful for your newsletter, because I've definitely been wanting to find more incredible things. And I'm very thankful that now they're just easily in my inbox and I can just read them. What do you send them out, once a week?
It's 3 times a week at the moment.
Oh, okay. Well, I
And
must not be on every single one of them.
Oh, really? Okay. I'm interested. I'm interested from your point of view, like what I always ask people this about, like what is the most sort of valuable thing for you in particular about Seedlings?
I think just your overall mission and like your overall content, because I am not an inbox reader. I do not read the things in my inbox. Most of the time I delete them, and I will spend, a good amount of time every week or every month or so often just deleting all the things in my inbox, or not my inbox, but in my like promotions or social box. But there are some times when I come across things in those folders that are just really helpful, and sometimes I do sign up for them or like purchase them or whatever to them. And but I'm very picky about it, because I think that like what goes into my brain is sort of maybe precious in a way. Like I didn't have a TV for a really long time, and I'm not a news consumer. Sometimes I feel like this kind of leaves me outside of the social awareness bubble, like things that I'm really bad at. Trivia is what it boils down to. I'm bad at trivia. I don't know random facts about things, but I think it sometimes gives me a little bit more sense of peace in my sort of day-to-day life. Hopefully not ignorant bliss, but just genuine like peace. But so when my biggest part for Seedlings, like what I value out of it, I think is definitely just the overall news aspect of it. Like, here are good things that are happening in the world, and here are things that I am interested in. And the first time I got Seedlings in my inbox, I was like, I'm just gonna kind of glaze over it. And then I told myself, no, actually read it, because there's like probably some really good stuff in here. And I did read it, and I'm really glad that I did, because it was very informative, and I thought it was really cool. So like I said earlier, y'all didn't just kind of give me like a couple like hot topic sentences like that are going to buzz feed me through the rest of the article in the first couple sentences or paragraphs. It was actually genuine good things. And yeah, so there's my answer.
Yeah. No, I'm really glad to hear that. I think, yeah, it's interesting because like a lot of people, obviously there's the, content by email is becoming more and more of a thing these days, mainly because I think as you say, it can be, even though there's a lot of nonsense in all of our inboxes, it can be a good way of connecting. And once we sort of, if it's something that we know we find value in and we build the habit with, it can be really sort of, it can be a useful thing. But as you say, it does take that initial sort of jumping off, do I really need another email? Do I want to try this? What's it like? But I mean, I think we've been lucky enough to find, with a whole range of people, that it's something that does work.
I mean, if I, as one of your subscribers can be a subscriber. Someone who, like I said, I'm very adverse to these things. When someone reached out to me on your team from Instagram and was like, hey, this is Seedlings. We're a newsletter. We talk about good things, positive things, whatever it is that they said to me. The fact that I can say yes and be like, I don't usually subscribe to these things, but the fact that this fits what I like in life and what I want to know more of. And so I think that's really cool. So if I can say yes because it fits what I want to know more of, then everyone else can say yes too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the founder of Seedlings, so I obviously would urge people to give it a go. You can sign up at seedlings.media. It's totally free, and you can unsubscribe at any time if for any reason you don't like it. So fundamentally, yeah, we urge people to give it a go and see what they think.
Yeah. And before we kind of like conclude, I do want to talk a little bit more about, so you said building trust with people is a really important thing for news and websites and everything like that. So do you want to talk about that for a little bit, like building trust with your subscribers and what that sort of looks and feels like for you, and like why that is a valuable thing for you?
Yeah, I think I do. And I think, a lot of it comes down to the question of genuine connection. We obviously have norms about the way that we, the way that we normally treat each other in real life, and the way that we behave, and the things that we do. And at worst, in the online world, those sort of things fall apart, and we become distrustful, or we don't sort of, we aren't able to sort of always sort of interact with people in the way that we want. And I think as we touched on earlier, there's a lot of things that justifiably make us angry, or a lot of things that might cause us anxiety. And I think, and a lot of those things happen in sort of, with a degree of bad faith, which is to say, well, if we make someone angry, maybe they'll buy this. Or if we make someone anxious, maybe they'll come back to our news website and look at this. So I think as a starting point, there has to be a degree of trust that we are not going to, abuse people's emotions, in that way. It's not about, taking someone on the high and the low and then hoping they'll, do whatever do what we want them to do. It's about fundamentally a genuine, even though obviously it's digital, it's about a genuine form of connection and trust that this is something we've created, and it serves this particular purpose, and there's a community alongside it, fundamentally, among people who sort of share those values. And I think the thing about trust is it's quite hard won. Everyone can talk about, oh, we want to launch a community, or we want to have these values, or whatever. And I think people rightly sort of take it with a pinch of salt a lot of the time, because it's very easy to say these things, and it's harder to genuinely mean them. And so I think from our perspective, it's a lot about how do we do that? How do we live our values, and whilst obviously continuing to survive and grow, commercially? And how do we create a space that embodying that is sort of sufficiently distinctive and different, given the sheer volume of sort of content and things that everyone has available to them via their screens 24/7.
Yeah, I like that. And I do feel like when I read Seedlings that it's not an emotional peak and valley. So I appreciate the peace that comes from reading Seedlings, to maintain peace.
I hope, yes, I hope it gives I hope it gives those. I think peace is a very interesting word, isn't it? Because people talk about finding joy or finding happiness, but really I think what we are all, those things are always going to ebb and flow, but what we can always aim for is peace. I think peace is a good word.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on Eco-Friendly Homes today, Matt. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate your newsletter, and I look forward to reading more.
Great. Well, I really appreciate, likewise, you having me on. Hopefully it's been interesting. Yeah, it's been really great.
It's also providing me with a very endless source of podcast guests. So.
Well, we're glad to be of assistance.
Sure. I realized that I was like, all these people could be a podcast guest. And And once again, everyone, that's seedlings.media if you want to go and check out the website, learn a little bit more, and subscribe.
Yeah, and just one more thing. We as I mentioned, we have these campus chapters, and we have 3 amazing leaders who've recruited teams at 3 campuses so far. And we're looking in the next month or so to expand to more. So if you do happen to be a student who is particularly ambitious and wants to get more into sort of sustainability and things like this and looking to be a leader, by all means, reach out to Matt@seedlings.media and we can talk about that as well.
Perfect. Awesome. And I will add your email, Matt, into the show notes so people can reach out through there. And yeah, I love that. I love that you're expanding into the community. And if I was still in college, I would know exactly who to direct you to, but I'm not. So
of course. No, that was very much a long shot, but there's no harm in mentioning it.
Yeah. I do have friends who are actually going back to school, so I'll run it by them.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I hope you have a good day, Matt. Podcast listeners, thank you so much for listening to today's show. I really hope you learned something new from your go-to podcast on all things eco-friendly in the home. I'm your host, Madison Hopkins, and I am signing off. If you would like to contact me, email me, madison@movingwithmadison.com. And remember to hit subscribe so you can get notified every second and fourth Wednesday of the month on how to live more eco-friendly in your home. And I will see y'all next time.